Hi, my name is Layla Lorenzen, and I will be going over the student characteristics and teacher interaction for the different learning styles. So the introduction, students come from different backgrounds and types of socialization. So as a teacher, it is important to adapt to teaching styles to fit students' individual needs. It is important to incorporate all different kinds of learning styles into curriculum and to find out what styles best for individual students. So the school I observed, here's some of the context. The school I observed is a Title I school. It's located in the middle of an older Boise neighborhood, and the school itself is somewhat dated. There was a lot of newer technology incorporated into the classrooms. For example, they had really big TVs in each classroom. They had nice projectors, and each student had an individual iPad that they were to use in the class. And besides this, they also had a new blacktop and also a newer playground. So, the classroom, students, and teacher. The classroom itself that I observed was somewhat bare with a few posters, quotes, and art on the wall. A lot of the art consisted of students writing their name or painting their name or spelling their name with one project was their name spelled with beans. So it wasn't a very vibrant classroom. It was kind of dull, but there was some art on the walls. And so the students in the kindergarten classroom were predominantly white. However, there were a handful of students that were not fluent in English yet, and this was kind of hard for the teacher to deal with for the most part. She had to spend a lot of extra time with these students. So the teacher I observed, who I will be calling Miss Beth, has been teaching for over 10 years. All of her time that she has spent teaching has been at the same school, and she has taught 2 grades there, which are first grade and kindergarten, and she did say she preferred kindergarten over first grade. All right. So student characteristics and teacher interaction of the learning styles. Families play a large role in how a student prefers to learn. For example, when looking at a student from a collectively oriented family where they rely more on feeling and personal interaction, a child might prefer a learning style that is more hands-on and less linear. On the other hand, a child from an individually oriented family may prefer a type of learning that is more linear and step-by-step. It depends on their socialization. Depending on how a child is socialized, they may view the classroom differently than others. For example, a student's home life could be very hierarchical, meaning they see the teacher as someone who is above them, which may make them hesitant to speak up in class. So it's important to understand kind of how a student has been socialized in order to make them engage in class and feel comfortable speaking up, and also so you can know what type of learning is best for them, whether this be a discussion or a handout or anything that they are most comfortable with learning, and that all depends on their socialization. So it's adapting teaching styles to diverse learning styles. So since all students have different learning styles, Howard Gardner says teachers should try to make their curriculum follow the following human intelligences. So first we have logical mathematical, which are skills related to solving logical problems in mathematical equations. And then linguistic, which is skills that have to do with meaning, sound, and rhythm, as well as language. And then body kinesthetic, which is the ability to coordinate the body and manipulate objects skillfully. And then musical, which is the ability to appreciate musical expression. Spatial, which is the ability to perform a mental model of concrete objects and manipulate parts in relation to each other. And then interpersonal, which is the ability to analyze and respond to behavior, feelings, motives of other people. And then intrapersonal, which is the ability to understand one's feelings and motives, using knowledge to adapt one's behavior accordingly. And then there's also naturalist, which is senility to discriminate among living things and be sensitive to natural environment. So essentially, these are looking at students that are math-brained, who are good with words, who like to move, then musical, and then they're also looking at students who respond to behavior based on what they observe, and then there are the ones who can adapt to behavior based on what they observed, and then there's also the naturalist, which has more of an appreciation for nature and animals and such. And so adapting teaching styles with learning styles. With knowing Gardner's multiple intelligences, it can show teachers how their students take in information best and what they are interested in. It can also show teachers that all students are stronger in certain areas than others. For example, Some students may be stronger when dealing with numbers, while others may excel in music or language. So, Miss Beth's pedagogy. And so I named her Miss Beth for the assignment. It's not her real name, but in the classroom I observed the teacher did not have a very strong connections with the students. For the most part, students were addressed as a whole class, were more so individualized when it came to corrections to behavior. In the class, Miss Beth mostly aimed to get everything done as a class and did not rely heavily on one-on-one interaction to ensure the students were learning. Instead, she would quietly go from table to table, only stopping if it appeared a child was struggling. This being said, it did seem like she was well in touch with the overall class's needs and seemed to know which students needed help the majority of her time. Which students needed the majority of her time. So in the classroom, again, she addressed the class mostly as the class for the most part. And then when they were sitting and doing table work from time to time, she would go around and kind of look, but she would only stop if she really noticed that a student needed help. There were a couple students that she seemed to interact with a lot more than others. A lot of these kids were the ones that were did not have English as their first language, so she was just giving them a little bit more attention in order to help. So, observation summary. Through my time in the kindergarten classroom, there were a variety of learning mediums used. This consisted of students following along with an assignment on the projector, to reading books out loud and making predictions, and also to students doing activity on the school-provided iPads. Most of the time, Miss Beth had an aide or parent volunteer that would assist. Also, through the time I observed, I saw Miss Beth utilize multiple of Garner's intelligences in her classroom curriculum. So this being said, even though she did address the class mostly as class, unless she was singling out behavior or if she was praising the students, it was addressed as class. She did have an aide a lot of the time, which was really helpful for some of the kids whose first language was not English, so they were able to get more attention from the aide and Miss Beth. So I think that was really helpful in our class. But in Miss Beth's adaptation, the students in Miss Beth's class were very diverse. Some loved to always be moving and chattering, and some liked to raise their hand and participate appropriately, and some I never saw speak the whole time I was there. During the observations, I saw Miss Beth use a variety of different teaching methods, which seemed to cater to Garner's multiple intelligences. So some examples of multiple intelligences in Miss Beth's classroom. So one way to describe the kinesthetic intelligence is called body smart. And so Miss Beth was well aware that there were some students in the classroom that obviously needed to move around to get their energy out. In order to combat this, she gave the students small breaks where they were allowed outside to run around and exert some energy. She also had days where they would have dance parties where she would put on short dance videos and students could follow. And then when referring to students who are really strong in linguistics and English and things like that, there's the phrase word smart. So in the classroom, Miss Beth ensured that students were able to have times to talk and spoke when prompted during class time. A lot of this would consist of her speaking syllables, them repeating, or her giving them a word and the students coming back with a word that rhymes. This method seemed very engaging to most of her students. So for both of these, one thing about Miss Beth that I noticed is that she was very in tune with what her students' needs were. A lot of the time, she would plan breaks for them so they could get some energy out. Since they are kindergartners, they're always moving around and touching things. And so I think by allowing them time to go and just get some energy out was really helpful to her classroom flow. And then with how there was so much talking in her class, I think that was really helpful to a lot of students since they were able to hear themselves talk, and especially when doing syllables and words that rhyme, hearing them talking the words out loud was probably very helpful so they could actually hear themselves say it. So, conclusion. Miss Beth's classroom was very in tune with the students as a whole and for the most part, her use of Garner's intelligences seemed effective. However, when it comes to understanding each student on a more individual level, there was more that could have been done. In the class, I noticed a handful of students that did not interact much and did not seem engaged overall. Perhaps by trying to acknowledge these students more so as an individual, Miss Beth might have been able to more effectively cater to their learning style. However, this can be challenging in a class of so many students.